Hello and welcome back to Animal Questions We Never Ask, but Should. I'm Marcy Elliott. I've got Specky here. I just want to introduce you to Specky. Raise your head up here. That's Specky, and that's Dr. Jane Leon. Dr. Jane.
Marcy?
Collar.
Collar.
We talked about safety in one of our previous shows with
Yeah.
pets. I had a close call with a dog wearing a collar that I stuck in the crate.
Yep.
And had I not been home, that dog probably would have choked himself to death. He got stuck somehow, and it was not a pretty picture. So, what's the moral to the story?
Ah, ah. The moral is dog collars are a double-edged sword. There's a lot of good, and there's potentially a lot of bad. The good is pretty easy. You can get a hold of your dog. That's critical. Somebody opens the front door, dog goes to run, you can stop your dog, right? You can put tags or identification better screwed into the sides of the collar, not on a tag, so if the dog is lost, somebody can pick him up. So sometimes microchips fail. I'm going to just go to the left on this one and say all dogs, cats should be microchipped. Those microchips should be then labeled with the company so that they can find them if they need to find them, so that you have a identification that can be traced back to you or the veterinary hospital. Sometimes so they migrate, sometimes and they can't find them with the scanner. Sometimes the scanner doesn't pick up that particular brand. So two types of identification are great. But here comes the downside. The downside is, number one, a lot of them shouldn't be left on if you're not actively training. So there's training collars that are different than the collar you were showing. They should only be used when you know what you're doing in your training. Secondly, they can get caught. Cats, dogs, horses, cows, I don't care what the animal is. They can get caught on a fence, on a crate, on something sticking out, on the edge of a chair. And your animal can actually be hung, can strangle. When I was a kid, my neighbor did that to their own dog. They tied him up with a rope and a collar, and the dog was on some steps to the front of the house and fell off. And by the time anybody got there, the dog was gone. So the question becomes, what do you do? And the answer to the collar dilemma is learn the collar, learn your pet, and always err on the side of safety. So Marcy, if you're not home and the dogs are in a crate, they don't really need a collar. I trust that you can get in your house if they're crated without them getting out. So they shouldn't be collared.
How about a harness? You could put ID on a harness and say,
Correct.
put
So that was
harness on.
the next. The next is, if you're afraid to leave them with nothing, a harness is inherently safer than a collar because it's really hard to strangle from the back of your back.
Right.
It's not around your neck. You can get stuck.
Sure.
Dogs have known to get their foot through one of them. You can put yourself in some precarious situations, but you really shouldn't strangle. So if you're going to use a harness, you want a harness that is properly fitting and probably the lightest weight you can get away with. You don't want to leave the dog in the house all day with one of these very big, heavy harnesses. You also want
the dog that almost got strangled actually
yes,
has a very, very light harness on now. He doesn't even
right,
realize he has it on. It's like a
right,
cotton harness, strong
right.
enough to,
You
put.
can grab the dog if you have to,
Yeah.
but safe enough that they're not going to strangle with it. Which also brings up an interesting thing about dressing your dog. I don't know what it
Halloween.
is. Halloween, cute little dog, big dog. There's really no reason to have clothing on your dog when you're not home. Sorry. I can't come up with anything. Nobody can see her or him. They're not looking at themselves in the mirror.
Right. Now, I mean, obviously, if you live in a colder region and you've got a coat on when you're walking the dog, that's a whole
Right.
different ballgame. But you're talking about the little skirts,
I'm also talking even about
outfit.
a coat. What can
Oh,
happen if you leave your child home in a raincoat, your 4-year-old, and you leave, well, you can't leave your 4-year-old. Left to their own devices, dogs and children can tangle themselves up in anything that's on them, right? Because the dresses and the coats don't fit tight like a harness. So again, legs go through, legs come out, heads get stuck. They get chewed off. They get chewed off by another dog. I don't like, there's no reason they need to be on in the house. Which also brings me now going to the other side to one of my favorite pet peeves, which are these. The Elizabethan collars. Yeah, this is my Elizabethan collar dog. Okay. These are great when you're home. Don't like them when you're not home. They get stuck in a crate, right? Think of all the ways you can get in trouble with a crate.
Okay.
Worse, I have seen dogs get their heads stuck in the trash can. So you have a 13-gallon trash can in the kitchen. The dog goes up, the dog gets the head in. Now this thing gets stuck into the garbage and the can is here and the dog can't get out. And I know of one dog who actually suffocated in a trash can full of trash because he couldn't get his head out, and then he flipped the can down and got covered with the trash and suffocated.
Oh,
Dog does not belong home alone in these. I like the donuts better. I don't have a donut. I should get a donut to put on my little dog.
yes.
But, you know, they just blow up around the neck, but they can get stuck too. So I guess we're back to that whole thing we talk about all the time, which is nothing's simple, and anything that can get stuck is a problem. And you have to learn the problems for your own pets. Is somebody home during the day? Can somebody check on the pet? Can they harm themselves? Are they hyperactive? How do you handle it? Maybe it's a crate with a closed door in a bedroom. So you have a double way to get into the house and the dog can't get out, and then they have nothing on in the crate. Cats, I'm running out of ways to go here. Cats, every time you put a breakaway collar on a cat and let that cat outside, cat comes home without the collar. You know what that tells me? If they don't have a breakaway collar on, they're not going to come home because they're going to be hung up on a fence or in a tree. Don't like collars on cats. Microchip your cat, or better yet, don't let them out. But that's a whole nother show. But in this case, don't like collars on cats. Don't even understand the concept of getting a 2-pound kitten, sticking a big collar with 2 tags hanging off his neck, and then a bunch of ruffles all around it, and having the cat walk around like that. Cat's not doing it to attract friends. I know you think it's cute, but it's potentially dangerous. Takeaway, just because it exists doesn't mean you have to do it. Just because it's sold doesn't mean it's safe. Learn about your pets. Learn about what's safe. Educate yourself and check your sources and do the absolute best you can to keep your pets safe and in your house.
Wonderful. Great, great advice. Thank you, Dr. Jane. And if you have any questions for Dr. Jane, please give me a holler at Marcy at Advocating for Animals. And don't forget, we can all do something big or small to help the voiceless and the vulnerable. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.